What is up, ladies and gentlemen, from YouTube? I'm Grant, your host as always, and today we're doing another review episode. Except this is quite different from my standard reviews that I usually do. Most of you probably know me for just reviewing new content, whether it be movies or video games, mostly movies. And yeah, I'll still be doing that. But this is kind of a new kind of ish series that I plan to do where I kind of revisit old movies from the past, or not that far ago, just like movies that came out before. And I just kind of want to give my thoughts on it again or reevaluate some things. Sometimes there will be context to it, and other times there really won't be. It'll just be me rewatching the movie. Sometimes there'll be a guest, maybe Alex. Other times it'll just be me. So, the usual. To get started with, I just want to mention this does have context. In light of the new trailer that came out of San Diego Comic-Con, Godzilla King of the Monsters releasing in 2019. I'm excited. I can't wait to see that. I hope it really delivers on its promise. I know Michael Dougherty. I am a fan of his work. I have seen Trick or Treat, which is amazing, and I have seen Krampus, which is a personal favorite of mine. A good Christmas, horror Christmas theme kind of movie. That being said, I can't wait to see King of the Monsters, and I really want to take this time to go back and rewatch Godzilla 2014, directed by Gareth Edwards. You know him by directing the movie Monsters, and as well as Rogue One. Yeah, instant classics. I know, but yeah. Getting back to the point, I want to mention Godzilla. Now, I think it's no secret that I'm a fan of Godzilla, the franchise. I mean, we did a whole video on Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee. Alex and I did that, and we talked a lot about the Godzilla movies and how much we're fans of it, and talked about a few of our favorite monsters. After that, of course, I did the Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle review, which I was quite underwhelmed by. But hey, we all have our own tastes. I know some people did not particularly agree with that review, but it is of course just my opinion. You don't have to agree with it. But I really did want to take a look back at this movie. I did rewatch it for this review, and wow, what can I say? To give a little backstory, I have to mention I was really excited for this movie. This was probably my most anticipated movie of 2014, or of just the 2000s in general. It was my most anticipated movie. I could not wait to watch Godzilla 2014, directed by Gareth Edwards. It looked very promising, and I watched it opening weekend, and I was very disappointed, but I still liked it. And a couple years later, I thought it was an okay movie, but I'm not a big fan. So I'm going to be talking about it. Now, the story of the movie pretty much is it's pretty simple if you know it already. It takes place in Japan in the beginning, at least, and it follows a huge meltdown at a factory, which leads to a bunch of crap, which leads to a bunch of monsters fighting, which leads to our main character trying to get back to his family. I think that's really all I need to get to, because really nothing much more in that is that much more interesting. I can't really tell you much more than that, but I don't really need to discuss the story that much. I just need to discuss my thoughts on it. And to begin with, I wanted to start off with a few things I liked in the movie. While revisiting it, it is very apparent that the beginning, the first act of the movie, is very good. It's very good. It's very well done. Bryan Cranston is very, very well cast in the movie, and he plays a very interesting character by the name of Joe Brody. And yeah, he is the best acted in the movie in general. I'm not very familiar with his work. I never watched Breaking Bad, and I've watched him in movies since, but like I said, I've never really watched his TV show. So this was really my first kind of experience seeing, Bryan Cranston on the big screen, and he really did impress me. I really did care about him in the beginning of the film. The build up in Act 1 is very terrific, and it's about the point where the Muto hatches out from its egg form, or its larva form, where the movie goes downhill. Pretty much after Act 1, everything goes downhill. The main character in the movie we follow is is Ford Brody, the son of Joe Brody, and he is played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, which you probably know him by either Kick-Ass or, oh yeah, he was Quicksilver. Yeah, that's right. Yep, that was him. Yep, you remember him, right? What a great guy that was. Yeah, Quicksilver. He played Quicksilver in Avengers: Age of Ultron. What a memorable fucking character he was. And he's also married to his wife, Ellie Brody. Just great names, by the way. These are top-notch character names. She's played by Elizabeth Olsen. And you're probably wondering, Elizabeth Olsen? Who is this? Elizabeth Olsen was a Scarlet Witch. Yeah. Now, people have made jokes about this before, calling them the incest twins and all kinds of other names. But there is something to be said about this, considering that I don't know why they thought that these two would be good as husband and wife. They played brother and sister, now they're husband and wife. It's a little bit weird to begin with, but I think the weirder part is that the producers looked at Age of Ultron and said, these two characters have a ton of chemistry, let's make them husband and wife. I don't get it. I think that they were pretty bad in that movie, and I don't really like either of them in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Then again, Quicksilver's dead, so I can't really say. But as far as Scarlet Witch goes, I don't really like her. She's okay, I guess. Anyways, getting back on the plot, these two have a kid because, you know, in every Hollywood movie they need to have a stereotypical perfect family, as they do, which this one's even worse than most. Not only is this guy a soldier in the military, a Marine, now she's a nurse, and then they have a perfect child that does everything perfectly. It's kind of embarrassing. I think the biggest thing to take away from this movie is, like I said, the most interesting parts are with Bryan Cranston and the doctor. I forget his name right now, but I think his name was Sarazawa. I don't think that's correct, but he is played by Ken Watanabe, which is also a great actor in the movie. However, they don't really utilize him as much as I would like. I really would have liked to see him more in the movie. I would have liked to see him and Bryan Cranston sort of team up in a way. At least have them be the main characters. But for the most part, the human plot in this movie is extremely and just completely boring. It's really boring. There's no way to say it a different way. It's just boring. Every scene with Aaron Taylor Johnson or whatever the hell his name is, it's just boring. He's not a bad actor necessarily. He just doesn't fit the role. And I don't think he's given enough material to really work with. So he just comes off as a horrible actor. He's just there reading lines, doing the things. Plot conveniences always happen. Like he happens to run into the monsters conveniently all the time. And it's just kind of annoying, to say the least. It's just kind of annoying. The story is essentially him trying to get back to his family in San Francisco, trying to save them. After his father dies, Bryan Cranston, spoiler alert, if you did not know. And that's pretty much the story. He's trying to save his family. And the way he gets to San Francisco is beyond ludicrous, I might add, but I'll get to that in a little bit. But like I said, the writing between these characters are particularly bad. And I think I do know the reason, and it is Gareth Edwards himself. He's not a good character or actor, director at all. He's good at directing atmosphere in a way. He's good at creating atmosphere. And he's kind of good at creating action. However, he's really, really fucking bad with structuring a plot. Like he's okay at creating an atmosphere, but he really cannot structure a plot in a good way. His movies are usually up to 2 hours long, and the pacing is always fucking terrible. And he's always teasing you. He teases you every step of the way, making it beyond boring, and then gives you everything at the end. And I just don't think that's the way you're supposed to do it, especially with a Godzilla movie. My biggest problem with this film isn't necessarily the screen time with Godzilla, it's the pacing of the monster. By an hour into the movie, an hour and 5 minutes into the movie, we finally see Godzilla. He plays no part in the first act. Absolutely no part. We barely see him. But an hour and 5 minutes into the movie, we finally see Godzilla in all his glory. We see a monster battle, and there's this huge applause, like everyone's excited to see the monsters, and it cuts. It cuts to a little gag, like they see it on the news, like, oh, there was the action, you just missed it. Like, what the fuck? This is the biggest fuck you moment I've ever seen in a theater before. It's really bad, and some people call this creative, but I call it annoying. You know, in most Godzilla movies are 90 minutes. You know, maybe a little bit longer, but most of the time they're at 90 minutes. And Godzilla should show up at least 30 minutes into the movie. Not have a fight scene necessarily, but show up. We should see him. And that's the main problem with the movie. It's teasing you all the way until the end. And even at the end, it's not great. The action set pieces in the movie are okay, but they're so dark that it's really hard to see. Now, I did my best to try to record some footage of the fight scenes, but honestly, my TV was just awful with this. You can't really see much, and I had to use some cheating abilities to actually get this footage. But my point still stands. The footage looks like crap. You could barely see it. Now, I have watched the 3D version of it. It looks better, and the contrast is a lot better. However, normally it just does not look good because it just doesn't work. These scenes really should have been shot during the day, or at least during some, like, there should have been some light so then we could see it clearly. There are some cinematography aspects of the movie I really do like. There are some shots of the movie I like. The atmosphere that he creates is good, but like I said, he's just not good at pacing his films, and that's the problem. I think the biggest thing when it comes to making a Godzilla movie is pacing. It's pacing for sure. The monster action and intertwining it with the human drama of the story.
hamba muyang tanda panguradan tunjukkanlah kesaktian Mosulah dengan kesaktian Indomu Lustawilado hamba-hambamu yang tanda panguradan tunjukkanlah kesaktian.
I've also heard the argument that Godzilla in this movie has about the same amount of runtime as older Godzilla movies, and that you can compare it to those, but that's really an irrelevant argument. It doesn't matter how much screen time Godzilla had before. I mean, they were using rubber suits, and they had to painstakingly detail each model set of a city every time to get Godzilla to destroy it. So, of course, they weren't going to show that much footage of it. But when they could show a lot of footage. And, you know, there are some movies where Godzilla's screen time is up to 14 minutes. Now, if Godzilla's screen time was up to 12 minutes in this movie, I'd be fine with that if they paced it right, and if it was a little bit shorter, of course. My biggest problem is, again, they don't show off Godzilla until an hour and 5 minutes into the movie. And again, I don't want this movie to be an action-packed monster movie. You need the human elements, you need the human story. But at the very least, if the monster action was paced right, the movie wouldn't be as boring as it is, as dull as it is. Like I said, I think it would have been perfect if at the 30-minute mark, Godzilla shows up. Maybe we see him wrecking some shit. Maybe we see him doing some destruction. Then we cut away, and then maybe 45 minutes into the movie, we get our first fight. Our first fight with the Mutos at Hawaii. And we don't cut away, we see it. I think that would have been better. And then, of course, you know, throughout the movie, we could get little snippets, little teases of Godzilla. But that really should have been in the first act, not an hour into the movie. We shouldn't have been teasing him the whole way through. Give people what they want. And I wanted to see Godzilla fight monsters, and I wanted to see an interesting plot with Bryan Cranston and Ken Watanabe, but we didn't see that, and that's what's really disappointing about the movie. I guess another problem I have with the movie is kind of just kind of the action scenes in general. While they're not bad, like I said, they are very dark, and because of it being so dark, you can barely see. Now there are other Godzilla movies where it's just like you can they're either brightly lit and you could see them, or it's dark but you could still see them with the spotlights and all kinds of flashing colors. Doesn't really matter. What I'm kind of trying to get at is that the past Godzilla movies, despite what people might think of them, they're very enjoyable and entertaining films. They got great action, great special effects, and they at times could have a fantastic plot with great characters. However, this movie really fails to accomplish any of those needs for a Godzilla movie. Quite honestly, I find this movie to be very boring, the majority of it at least. There are a lot of stupid plot conveniences. While I can forgive that, it's still boring. I can forgive the plot conveniences if it was an entertaining film with good characters. But the fact is that there's just not good characters. There's also this myth that with monster movies, we don't need to have good characters or a good plot. We just need monster action. And I could not disagree more. I could get plenty of monster action from any other movie that Godzilla has. I can just look it up on YouTube if I wanted. But I really go to these movies, I revisit them to see the story and the characters that play out. And of course, the action is good. It's like if someone asked me, what would you rather watch, Kong Skull Island or the original King Kong from 1933? Kong Skull Island has some fun action scenes and some great action scenes. However, King Kong 1933, I think I'd have to go with that because it actually has a much more compelling story and characters, and it has a lot more impressive special effects for the time. It's just a much more unique film and a better constructed film. That's not to say Kong Skull Island's bad. It's just it doesn't have good characters or really that great of a plot. So because of that, it just kind of falls underneath, and I don't really see myself rewatching it other than the 2 times that I've already watched it. It's an okay film, and it's an okay kind of starting film, but it's not the best. I really do believe they can do better with these plots. You can go all out and have all out monster action, have them all out with the special abilities that they have, their looks and everything. You can do that, and if you take it seriously, you can create something good, which is why I'm excited for Michael Dougherty's Godzilla. I really do feel like he does understand the character and the movies, so I hope that his interpretation of it is better than Gareth Edwards. To put it simply, Godzilla 2014 isn't a bad film. It's well made, yes, and it is very it does the character justice, Godzilla at least. However, I just find the movie to be boring, and really there's not much value to it. I mean, you can always revisit it like before King of the Monsters, but then again, I'd rather just watch old Godzilla movies that actually do have a good plot and good characters. Like I said, this one just doesn't have that. In all honesty, I think I find the 1998 version a little bit more entertaining. Not because it's a better movie. No, it sucks. It's awful. But it's more memorable and has more memorable lines because it's so terrible. This movie, I just find it very mediocre, very boring. There are some good elements to it. There are some things I like. But overall, I find it boring. And the biggest sin to me for a movie is for it to be boring. If it entertains me, I could give it a pass, like Justice League. The movie sucks, but it was entertaining. But then you give me a movie like, I don't know, let's say Captain America Civil War. The movie's kind of boring to me, and that's why I don't really enjoy it that much. So that's how I really look at movies. If they're boring, then I really can't be entertained by it at all. Godzilla 2014, it doesn't suck, but it's very boring. And if you're looking at a way to get into the Godzilla franchise, I really don't think this is the one you should look at. It is very, very boring. And if I were to rate it today, I'd give it a 5 or a 6 out of 10 at most. I find it to be very mediocre. And quite honestly, I don't really recommend it. I recommend it if you're a big Godzilla fan and if you're waiting for Godzilla King of the Monsters. And yes, I recommend it. However, I will give a big warning that there are going to be large portions of this movie that are just going to be boring. Well, that's it for me. That's all I had to talk about. All I really wanted to talk about with this movie, at least. Thank you for watching my first episode of review. I hope to do more of these in the future. I really have no plans for another episode anytime soon. I just wanted to talk about this before Godzilla King of the Monsters came out, so then you guys can know my thoughts and where I stand with this movie. And hopefully, in a couple more months, I think like 5 months or 6 months, when I review Godzilla King of the Monsters, hopefully I have a little bit more positive review to give you guys. If you guys have watched this movie, please let me know down below what you thought of it. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. And as always, have a nice day. And I'll see you next time on One Pro Review.